I've done it. I've actually played Dead Island 2, the impossible game that everybody assumed would never actually come out. This has been stuck in development hell since 2014. It's been rebooted, it's been restarted, it's been shifted from studio to studio, but I've finally beat it. I conquered the main campaign, I've done a lot of side quests, I've maxed out the skill trees, and finally, we can discuss if this was actually worth this tremendous decade of impossible troubles. And it's a bit of a mixed bag. Let's discuss. What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here. Hi, hope you're having a great day. If you could like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. So we're going to divide this into three separate chunks: the story, the gameplay, and the upgrade system, because each of these are pretty dang sizable. First and foremost, let's discuss the paper-thin plot and why I do think this does make some good changes from the original Dead Island. So this takes place in LA, Los Angeles, and it turns out that we are a rare person who's completely immune to the zombie virus. You can get bit, you can get clawed, they can spit in your freaking mouth, you can swallow it, and you still won't become infected. Now, this is great, but it actually has an additional layer to it. You want to escape. You need to get out. The apocalypse is already beginning at the start of the game. Now, we choose a hero, each of which have different base stats. More resilience, extra health, faster run speed, things like that. I decided to choose the person who takes the least amount of damage, and as soon as I dropped into this, I think that was a very good choice. You get bashed up a lot in Dead Island 2. The overall objective is to try and escape LA, but doing that is a very messy obstacle course. Dead Island 2 is essentially broken down into a bunch of very large sub-maps. So you have access to a ton of the city, but you also go through underground sewers, abandoned shopping malls, big apartment complexes, and even big streamer mansions. I do want to say my favorite thing about this game when it comes to the story and the writing itself is the fact that it is very, very humorous when it's trying to actually be funny. At one point I was exploring a different random house just to try and find some supplies, and I discovered a YouTuber's fake apology video script. This is actually hysterical. I appreciate the fact that it is a good bit of poking fun at the celeb life and, the crazy rich people that sort of live in that LA bubble. But what's most important here is, well, how does it play? After 9 years of development, is it actually fun? Well, yes and no. My biggest problem with Dead Island 2 is how close it sticks to the original Dead Island. This doesn't really feel like a sequel. It does kind of just feel like big budget downloadable content. Now, that's sometimes a benefit, the fact that they're not trying to completely reinvent it, but this is first and foremost an old school role-playing game. It's got stat sheets, it's got attack power, it's got sub bonuses, it's got crafting systems, and it does have a lot of experience points pools. Now, here's why I did not like that. I do want to start with the negative aspect of this. There is a lot of times where when you finish a main story mission, it levels up the entire bit of LA. So if you beat a level 18 quest, all the zombies are instantly turned over to level 19. Now, you get quite a bit of experience points for finishing missions, but there were times where I was slightly underleveled. I managed to really tactically take down a boss, and then suddenly, the game was impossibly difficult. Now, this happened 2 separate times in the game where I did manage to take somebody down, and then every single enemy was practically one-shotting me. And additionally, there is a bunch of autosave checkpoints all over the place. There were a few situations where I got cornered by a monster that was way higher level than me, and I couldn't really escape. I actually just had to run away. And sometimes it does actually lock you into particular sections of the map to try and get you to solve a problem or get rid of a puzzle, and it sucks when everything is very overleveled. Now, killing the zombies themselves doesn't really give that much experience points, which is kind of strange. Each individual kill gives like 20 XP, and leveling up takes about 10,000 XP. So it's not that you can just grind for a bit and instantly be prepared for that next major encounter. Now, the solution to this is that there is a ton of side quests. They're pretty much the exact same thing over and over and over again. Every side quest is pretty much just a person who needs you to either rescue them and take them to a local safe house, or it's somebody that just wants you to help them fortify their base. You know, a random military survivor who wants you to reignite some burn pits, or, you know, a random old fogey, some ancient Burt Reynolds style 70s era action hero who needs you to get his electric wheelchair down the ramp so he can drive to the safe house. Now, I think these quests are actually pretty funny. I like the writing themselves, the cheeky humor, the goofy self-awareness of putting horror movie stars in a horror movie game. My problem is that they don't really feel optional. There is definitely a bit of required grinding here that didn't feel spectacular, because additionally, there is very ridiculous weapon degradation. Hitting people with stuff breaks your hammers, your wrenches, your axes. Stuff breaks very, very fast, especially early on. This is one of those very bizarre games where it gets easier and easier and easier as you get more rare weapons and more customization specialities get unlocked. You can actually build weapons that have pretty much unlimited health. You can get stuff that will pretty much never degrade. But early on, it's tough to even get from point A to point B without having to get 15 different weapons that are going to constantly be shattering. Now, this does get better over time. I think once you start to unlock the different customization options, which we're going to talk about in a bit, this game becomes fantastic. This is one of those strange games that takes 20 hours to beat, but the first 10 hours is way less fun than the last 10 hours. Now, there is additionally unlockable long-ranged weapons. At a certain point in the story, you start to be able to pick up guns. Now, the ammunition is pretty plentiful, but again, it's based on the role-playing game system. So there is definitely a lot of times where a shotgun will do 4 damage when you have a pull cue that does 400 damage. So it's still better to hit somebody instead of shooting them in the face. Now, personally, I don't really have a problem with that because, I mean, it is a video game. It is trying to be a role-playing game specifically. So if you want to make melee weapons better than sniping people, I'm totally fine with that. My issue is that it does come down a bit to sometimes the uselessness of guns. It's weird when you get an acid pistol that melts people, but it just doesn't do anything compared to just throwing a wrench. It feels a bit goofy at times, even if it does sort of make sense stats-wise. It just doesn't work quite well in execution. Now, the one part of this game that definitely becomes more difficult as you progress is zombie immunities. Each of these different monsters, at the start, they're just straight up rotting corpses. You bash their brains in, it's pretty easy peasy. Now, you can choose to also do all sorts of funny melee attacks. If you run and press crouch, you'll slide. So if you run and then slide and press the default kick button, which is clicking the right stick, you can actually do a sliding kick. If you run and jump and kick, you can do a jump kick to stagger people. But to go with this, there is a lot of enemies that actually end up having different weird immunities. Zombies that are covered in spikes, so they're pretty much resistant to physical attacks. They harm you when you hit them. There's firefighters in flame retardant suits, so they're immune to your fire weapons. Engineers are wearing shock-proof suits, so of course they cannot be electrocuted. Sometimes you'll run into scientists with biohazard suits on, so they're immune to poison. Now, I guess my problem is that at the start, they feel like special infected. The key word being special. It feels like a big deal when you encounter them, but towards the end of the game, these dudes are everywhere. In most packs, you're running into multiple of these guys. So it's like, all right, that's the guy who's immune to fire. I got to switch to this element. Oh, it's that guy who's immune to this. It starts to become silly when there's like 10 separate special infected that are literally shooting lightning out of their freaking nipples. I do wish the game tried a bit less to be so crazy and ridiculous, and I kind of wish that instead of having like 15 super zombies, we had 50 mid-range zombies. This game never actually feels scary because it's just so tactical on which element goes to which enemy. Now, I do want to talk about the upgrade system because this is probably the most in-depth, but is also, I feel like, the part that a lot of people are just not going to understand. Personally, I liked it quite a bit, but it's definitely different. Now, there's two different flavors of upgrade in this game, and they're drastically different. There's the upgrade talent trees, and there's the weapon upgrades. Let's start with talents. So, when you're playing this game, you are infected, but you also are sort of a zombie yourself. As the game goes on, you actually unlock special abilities where you can go fury mode and kind of go like Wolverine and start to shred people. You can unlock different special abilities and even put in zombie talent points, which make you stronger, but also hurt your stuff. They make it so you're not as human. You'll have a smaller health pool, you'll have less stamina, you'll stop regenerating health naturally, but if you want, you can stay completely human and use this card-based talent tree to focus on what you like most, whether that is tiny talents like knocking zombies over does more damage, dodging somebody increases all damage dealt for 30 seconds. You can make it where a counterattack heals you. Or one of my favorite talents that I used for the entire game, which is that every time I use a med kit, it lets out a little tiny sonic blast that pushes back a lot of infected, which definitely kept me alive during some of those hairy underground fights. Now, this is all pretty cool, but I do think it is one of those set it and forget it kind of games where as you unlock skills, you're going to move stuff around a tiny bit, but once you sort of set into your ways, once you figure out your particular playstyle, I don't think people are really going to be moving around these card trees very much. They're broken down into these separate trees of like survival and attacks and mutagens, but once you kind of figure out what you like, you're probably not going to test out things that are too drastically different. Now, the other upgrade system I think is actually perfect. The more I played with it, the more I kind of grew to appreciate it, which is weapon crafting. This is done at workbenches. There's multiple big safe zones in each of the different areas. Places where you can find shops, you can find side quests, you have bounties to try and kill or save particular peoples in town, but there's also just workbenches that let you go in and actually, by using schematics, heavily customize your particular weapons, adding in elemental bonuses, making them more durable, repairing the weapons that are broken that you like them the most, and even level match. So if you have a level 15 hammer and you're level 20 now, and you like that one in particular, you can break down other weapons to get scraps and fix the stuff you like most. I got this big, huge hammer with hundreds of attack power, and I'll be honest, I grew attached to it. I actually loved doing heavy attacks with it so much, I kept repairing it over and over and over again. And I think that's a testament to how good this crafting system is because while it is a little bit simplistic, it's cool that I can figure out, okay, what do I want to specialize in? Breaking limbs? Do I want to try and melt people? Is this one of those kind of weapons that I just want to be able to throw at people and then pick up later? I like that. It's cool that you can actually build sniper rifles with different amounts of special ability or bonus crit damage or even just tiny things that make it where it's able to stun from further range. That's pretty neat, and it makes it where you actually get excited to look at the stats of every item and figure out, okay, what do I want to change? What do I want to improve? What do I want to truly make my own? Dead Island is a game that I feel like tries to mix together a lot of very quirky ideas. Some of them work and some of them don't. I think that overall, I did have a fun time with this game, but it doesn't really feel like a project that came out in 2023. this does feel a bit like a beautiful PlayStation 4 game. So, let's actually try and put a number on it. We've heard some good and some bad. Let's go to the ratings board and let's score this bad boy. I am giving Dead Island 2 a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, gamers. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a big old thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. So I beat this on the Xbox Series X. The only thing I could not test was the co-op, because obviously I played this way before the game was out, and I didn't know any other reviewers that were testing it on Xbox. This does seem like one of those games that if you play it with a friend, much like something like Dying Light 2, I think it's going to be a better experience. But Dead Island 2, completely solo, it's decent. Well, you guys rock. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like it and subscribe. And, titties. Wait, no, I'm not going to show my titties. This is a zombie review. God, grow up. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.